It's the Whiskey Wizard.
Hello and welcome to the Whiskey Wizard, where we say that whiskey making takes scientific knowledge, an artisan's skill and dedication, and a bit of the wizard's alchemy of light, air, earth, and fire. On this installment, we're on to part of my Distiller series, where we'll explore various distilleries that I've had the pleasure to have visited. Tonight, we're talking about the Nelson's Brier Distillery, located in the city of Nashville. I was drawn there as a fan of Bellmead whiskeys, which are distilled there, some of which we featured on the show, and of course, their original Nelson's Brier whiskey. Okay, according to the distillery, Charles Nelson was born in 1835 in a small town in northern Germany. He was the eldest of 6 children whose father, John Philip Nelson, owned a soap and candle factory. When Charles was 15, his father decided he wanted to move his family to America for a better life. He sold his soap and candle factory, converted all the family's earthly possessions to gold, and had special clothing made to hold all of that gold on his person during the journey. In late October of 1850, he gathered his family and set sail for America. As fate would have it, on November 19th of that year, intense storms and gale force winds sent many of the nearly 180 passengers overboard. John Philip Nelson was one of those unfortunate souls, and weighed down by the family fortune, he sank directly to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Luckily, the rest of the family arrived safely in New York, but with only the clothes on their backs, and 15-year-old Charles found himself the man of the house. Charles Nelson was penniless, yet determined, and his brother and he began doing the only thing they knew how to do, making soap and candles. After saving some money, the Nelson family moved west, settling in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was there that Charles, merely 17 years of age, entered the butcher business and acquainted himself with a number of fellow craftsmen who educated him in the art of producing and selling distilled spirits, particularly whiskey. Several years later, just before the start of the Civil War, Charles set out for Nashville seeking a fresh start and another American dream took hold. He opened a grocery store which flourished from the sales of his 3 best-selling products: coffee, meat, and, of course, whiskey. The quality of both his products and services quickly built Charles a reputation that went unmatched amongst Nashville merchants. His reputation brought about great prosperity for his family. Very quickly, however, Charles realized that the demand for his whiskeys far exceeded his supply, revealing to him the opportunity to focus solely on whiskey. So he sold the grocery business. Legend has it, the blend of coffee was then bought by the Maxwell House Hotel in downtown Nashville, where patrons would later proclaim it is as good to the last drop. So there's another interesting connection for you. His butcher also stayed in business, and the store soon grew into a successful Nashville-based grocery chain that's still in business today. On a hot summer day in 2006, Bill Nelson invited his 2 sons, Andy and Charlie, to go see a butcher in Brier, Tennessee. As the 3 men drove to Brier, they recalled the stories that had been passed down to them about the family whiskey business that had been located in the small town. When the 2 arrived and started asking questions about the old Nelson distillery, the butcher, Chuck, could hardly contain his excitement. "Look across the street over there," Chuck exclaimed. "Your granddaddy built that warehouse." He went on to say, "This street is Distillery Road. You know, that spring is still there and it's never stopped running. It's as pure can be." Bill, Andy, and Charlie eagerly walked over to explore the land that was once home to the nation's largest producer and supplier of Tennessee whiskey. After quenching their thirst with the crisp, cool spring water, Chuck pointed them in the direction of the Brier Historical Society. Here, the Nelsons met the curator who revealed her most prized possessions: 2 original bottles of Nelson's Brier Tennessee whiskey. It was love at first sight. Charlie and Andy stared at the perfectly preserved bottles and then looked back at one another, knowing what the other was thinking. This is our destiny. So the rest is history, as it were, but it wasn't exactly easy as the brothers learned and built was today a thriving whiskey business that would certainly make their grandfather Charles proud indeed. The first time I visited the distillery a few years ago, the Belle Meade brand was on prominent display, and though it's still there, it's barely mentioned throughout the tour and the tasting session afterwards. As I inquired, I was told that Belle Meade was a contract distilled brand and was not technically part of Nelson's Brier portfolio. So it would seem that these days they are drawing their products to the fore in favor of the perhaps more widely known Belle Meade product. I guess this makes perfect sense, and as evidence, they have released their Nelson's Reserve and Classic series. I purchased the Reserve and was quite happy with its rich, fruity spice and oaky depth. Next time you're in Nashville, stop in and check out Nelson's Brier Distillery. You'll enjoy the detailed tour as much as their fine whiskey offerings. Right there in the same shopping complex called Marathon Village, because it was once part of the 1908 Marathon Auto Works, there is also a licensed moonshiner, Tennessee Legend, where every flavor one could imagine is available in moonshine distillate at 80 proof. I got Shauna some of the salted caramel, which goes well straight on ice cream or in your morning coffee. There's even a winery called Grinders Switch Winery, which makes product from mostly sweeter vine juice, but a lot of the shopping ladies, it seems, could be found there. And we ended up at a small distillery there called Corsair. We enjoyed a last dram or two of their not too bad single malt before getting on our way. Again, you taste a lot and buy a lot there at the Marathon Village. Well, that's about all for this week's Whiskey Wizard. Make sure to catch me, Doug Dunbar, with the rest of the Whiskey Roundtable crew, Big G, and Karen Helen Keller on our live Whiskey Roundtable show on YouTube this coming Friday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You can also find a link to that Friday show on our Facebook page. Until then, cheers and slanjava. Remember, think responsibly.